Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. Year 2025 saw many challenges to European security. From the ongoing war in Ukraine, obviously, to many other issues, such as the incursions into the European airspace and the threats in the Black Sea. So the question is right now, what are the prospects for the year 2026? What is going to happen? Can Moscow be reined in? Will the conflict in Ukraine actually come to a close? We're going to be asking all those questions to our guest today, Wierenga, lecturer in international relations at the Baltic Defence College. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning, Happy New Year to you and everyone at TVP World, as well as to all of your viewers.
And we appreciate that very much. Happy New Year to you as well. So, if that year is going to be happy, possibly happier than 2025, some things on the geopolitical arena would need to change. Do you think that peace in Ukraine is within our grasp right now, or are we still a long way off?
That is probably the most pressing question when it comes to European security moving forward into the new year. I mean, there's a couple of things that need to be said about that. There is the political element of ending the conflict, and then what the definition of ending means. Is it something that's going to be accepted by Ukraine and the Ukrainian people? Is it going to be something that's accepted by Europeans who have taken a much more active and pressing role in the security of the continent? Just last year alone, I think that's one of the major headlines. But I think we should not forget that in 2025, Russia intensified its assault on Ukraine, especially on the civilian population of Ukraine, and they bombed. They used drone strikes and almost daily attacks on cities across Ukraine. But also the Ukrainians have continued to show resilience. They defended nearly 80% of their territory. And we're just shy of 1 year ago when Donald Trump returned to the White House on a vow to quickly resolve Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, although he named it slightly differently. And we're a year in almost, and that's still going on with these peace talks in a bilateral format, with the Trump administration talking to Europeans separately with Vladimir Putin. So is peace within the reach? Well, there's not really been much to incentivize Vladimir Putin to stop, unfortunately. But I think that European deterrence, when it comes to EU, NATO member states that are also in Europe, are much stronger now because they're prepared for the new security environment.
Now, speaking of security environment and speaking of incentivizing Russia to stop the war, do you think that new incentives may appear? I'm asking because there was recently a comment from Donald Trump himself in the form of a link that he basically reposted on his social media account. Now, the link in question was an article which squarely put the blame on Vladimir Putin for stalling peace talks, for lying when it comes to the alleged drone attack in Russia against one of his mansions. Do you think that the pendulum might be swinging in the right direction here, that the US administration will be running out of excuses for not sanctioning Russia even further?
I think so. I mean, it's not a clear cut. I'd be willing to place a bet on the table, metaphorically speaking, of course. But that came just after Donald Trump was on TV with Benjamin Netanyahu, and he was asked about the so-called strike against Vladimir Putin's residence, which the Kremlin has no evidence for, and neither do U.S. intel services. So I think that the post that you're referring to was a good sign, and I think that there are a couple of factors that go into this. I mentioned before the bilateral discussions, mostly between Steve Witkoff and the Kremlin, but also that meeting in Alaska between President Trump and Mr. Putin, and some of the phone calls that they've had. But European leaders, including President Zelensky, including NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, have met with President Trump. And I think that a lot of those discussions are actually fairly productive. despite some of the language that comes out. I mean, you picture right now is the Secretary of War alongside of the president, and they've been fairly clear and fairly consistent that Europeans need to be responsible for their security first and foremost. Well, Europe has answered that call. Europe has also become even more firmly entrenched in their support for Ukraine. So I think that with the power of the many in the multilateral format, there can be a lot of encouragement to the Trump administration to actually move on this. And you raise a good question. I mean, it's been pretty much a year. And nothing is going on. So I think that there will, if I had to say... We've got
sanctions against Russian oil companies right now.
And I think that those will continue, and I think that we will likely see a more robust sanctions package to get this to hurry up, because I do think that President Trump is losing patience with this dwindling.
So now, we've been getting mixed signals when it comes to European security. And some of these signals suggested the possibility of an imminent Russian threat. Others, like the Estonian intelligence recently, said there is no evidence that the Russians obviously, are doing something right now. This could change in the future. Nevertheless, what do you think is the situation right now? Is war really around the corner, or some sort of limited incursion, military adventurism by Moscow?
Well, this goes back to your definition. I would say that we're sort of in a war right now. If we talk about a hybrid war, I mean, hybrid threats are actually hybrid actions. If you take into account maritime undersea sabotage, if you take into account airspace incursions, if you take into account the cognitive domain and the massive amplification of hybrid threats, political meddling, cyber incursions, cyber attacks. Those are attacks, and by the Russian understanding, that leads them into their understanding of what it is. Now, I think that the big question that you're referring to is an actual traditional kinetic threat, which involves airstrikes, which involves tanks, boots on the ground, these types of things. Yes, the question about whether that may happen is more pressing now than at any point in time since the end of the Cold War, for sure. And I think the big, pressing question is what will happen if actually there is a ceasefire or an end to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, meaning that Russian troops leave and they reconstitute and they prepare for something else because they're already on the war path. So I think that there's always, given Russia's actions, not just since 2022, but since 2008, given their intentions, which are very firmly and very clearly stated by Mr. Putin. I mean, there's no way to misunderstand what he wants. He wants a reorchestration of the security architecture in Europe. I think that it's very, very wise to prepare for that to be inevitable, even if it is not inevitable, because then we are collectively better prepared. So no, I don't think that that's a couple of months around the corner. But what the last couple of years has taught us is that Russia is very willing and actually has amplified their hybrid attacks against European NATO allies, and they have become more frequent and they have become more intense. And I do not expect that to stop.
So deterrence is key. Do you think that Russia may actually be trying to convince us that, yes, the threat is so imminent that you have to make concessions for us? Perhaps we're not going to attack you in that case. And these concessions could be reaching far beyond Ukraine. Do you think that we need to take a long, hard look at how we perceive the threats and the reliability of what Russia is talking about, so as not to give way to essentially, blackmail?
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. I think that we have to understand, countries along NATO's northeastern flank understand very well what Russia's all about. And I think that other NATO allies are starting to understand very clearly what their objectives are and how they anticipate achieving them. So I think we have to be very, very clear that they are aiming to work below the kinetic threshold. I don't think that Russia wants to get into an all-out military confrontation with NATO. That wouldn't go so well with them. What they do want to do, and I think they're trying to do, and they're playing the long game in trying to do this is to test the political resolve of NATO, because that is very much under the kinetic threshold. And I don't think that they're going to achieve that, because they have consistently over the past couple of years demonstrated that they're just not willing to operate in good faith. Case in point, the so-called peace negotiations. If you are actually interested in peace, you do not simultaneously commit atrocities and war crimes and target civilian infrastructure. So people are waking up to this, and the more that these types of hybrid incursions continue, which are done with the premise of plausible deniability, the more people are going to get sick and tired of it. And there's already discussion amongst European allies about how to be more firm in a resolve against these hybrid threats.
Wierenga was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news, updates and commentary.